Awesome. Welcome to another expert interview. Really excited for today's guest. We have Kirk with GratisGives and Gratis Payments. Kirk has a wealth of knowledge in an industry that's super confusing. So really excited to dig into the topic. Kirk, let's jump right into it. Why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
So first of all, Devin, thanks for having me. Happy to help and looking forward to this interview. My name is Kirk Allaire, and I own Gratis Payments and GratisGives, which is the nonprofit initiative part of Gratis Payments.
Awesome. Let's talk trends in the merchant processing space, credit card processing. I know there's a lot in the space, but what are some trends that you're seeing in the industry that you think people should pay attention to?
Well, they move fast. In fact, by the end of this recording, we might have a new one. But right now, the trends are obviously pay by text is really hot right now. Pay by QR code or electronic invoicing through QR codes is very popular right now. And then, the whole tap your card and use your phone, the near field communications, commonly referred to as NFC, portion of the industry is still pretty hot.
Okay, so it sounds like lots of tech improvements in the industry.
It is ridiculously fastly evolving. Yes.
What of those, when a business owner is looking at, do I need to pay attention to that tech as it applies to my business? Which of those are security things they should definitely pay attention to? And which of those are added benefits that are situational?
Well, that's a really good question. So the security is changing just as fast as the technology is changing. And the whole PCI compliance issue and the level 1 data collection is super important. And terminals that were popular even as short as a year or two ago are almost out of date at this point. And that's unfortunate because no one likes buying terminals. But when you start talking about peer-to-peer encryption and end-to-end encryption and tokenization, it all becomes relevant in this as we move closer to the holy crap, we need security, fraud protection.
Yeah, and there's a big cash penalty on the back end of that, right? Like if you're a business owner and you have something hacked or something happens, are you liable for that? Where's that liability fall?
Yeah, there's liability falls on as many people as they can possibly get it to fall on. And the majority of fraud usually happens in the smaller businesses. We may think that it happens to the big ones, but it actually happens to the smaller ones. We just don't hear about them as much. And the fees behind not being compliant, even if there's not a data breach, there are fees that are in place to, how do I want to say, instigate you to become compliant. I mean, there are some companies out there that charge upwards of $125 a month for not being compliant, on top of all the other fees. So it can become expensive if you don't stay compliant.
Jeez. Okay. So lots for businesses to sort through. So let's talk about vendors, right? So, a business can go out there and there's a lot of quick options to set up merchant processing. And, there may be some reasons and benefits to that. But with all these moving pieces, it sounds like you should have some sort of partnership or someone you can call or someone who's looking out on your behalf. Can you talk about the different options people have when it comes to setting up processing for their company?
Right on. So the options with regards to setting up processing is there's a ton of them out there. And we have been historically, when I say we, I mean we as business owners have been historically trained to just search on price. What's your rate? Hey, Kirk, what's your rate? Hey, Kirk, what's your rate? All the time. We hear it all the time. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just your rate. And what they don't understand is that that question is birthed from an old pricing strategy that used to be very common. People used to say, well, our rate is 1.25. But there were downgrades that would go to 2.25 and 3.25 and 3.9. But no one would tell you any of that. They would just sell you the 1.25. So that thought process, there are still people that do it out there, but it's almost gone. And there's no simple way to say, hey, what's your rate? Because Visa, MasterCard, the issuing banks, they set the rates. We don't set the rates. The rates are the same for everyone. It's how you take cards and what cards you take that dictate the rate. So, for example, Devin, if I was buying something from you today and I was standing in front of you and I took a debit card out, it's gonna cost you a particular rate, very small. But if I was on the phone with you and I used that same card to make a payment, it would have a different rate because Visa and MasterCard assigns a risk value to every transaction. So remember, there's two things: how you take the card and what type of card it is. Because you as a business owner, you have no idea whether I'm going to pull out an American Express, whether I'm going to pull out my Southwest Rewards card, or I'm going to pull out my debit card. And they all have a different cost to it.
Interesting. Man, the more we talk, the more complicated the industry gets. And I know, like, after talking to you for years and years, I mean, that is the experience, right? And a lot of business owners don't know what they don't know. And, having looked at quite a few statements and worked with you on quite a few clients, it's interesting to see how those statements look and how complex they are. So can you break that down? I know we don't have anything on the screen, but could you just talk a little bit through, like, hey, here's some things to look out for if you are getting a statement and maybe some hidden fees?
That's a great question. In fact, that's a really, really good question. So the statements, for the most part, are purposely made difficult to read so that the merchants can't figure out what they're paying. That in and of itself is very frustrating to us. We use very simple statements and we educate our customers on how to read those statements so they're never left in the dark. How do I want to say the second part of your question again?
Just giving them some tips on, like, where some of those fees might be hidden.
Oh yeah, right. So the best thing to know, the first thing you need to know is, what is my effective rate? The effective rate is the piece that nobody can hide from. Okay, the merchant can't hide from, Visa can't hide from, merchant companies like Gratis can't hide from. The way you do an effective rate is you take your total fees paid for the month, and you divide that number into the processed revenue, and you come up with a percentage. That, Devin, is your real rate.
Got you. So if I do that and it comes up to 5%, I should probably make a call.
That's right. So, if you do $100,000 in business and you're paying $2,700 in fees, you're paying 2.7%. If you're doing $100,000 in business and you're paying, $3,718, you're paying 3.71%. You see what I'm saying? Now, how they get to that is hidden within that statement. But that number divided by that number cannot lie.
I love that. So just giving them a quick idea of, hey, let's actually see what your real rate is. Because if they did promise you in your example, right, they promise you 1.25, and you go find that effective rate and find that it's 3%, at least go talk to them, right? Hey, yes, explain this to me, whether you're trying to change vendors or not. Like, just go ask, like, hey, explain what's going on. And if they're not explaining, right, maybe it's time to change partnerships or look for someone else that makes sense in your area. But I love that tip because it's clean.
We had recently we had a dentist that we saved them when we did a proposal for them. We were saving them about $1,400 a month. Okay, in fees. He was overpaying by $1,400. But his software we were not compatible with. Now that doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So he couldn't even take advantage of the savings. So, what we did instead is we contacted his current payments company, and helped him negotiate his better rate. Awesome. We didn't even get him as a customer, but that's what we do. We know that'll come back in the long run.
I love that. Well, I mean, we just need a partner. We're not. It's like insurance. Hand me an insurance policy. Good. I can't read this shit. Like it's not gonna happen, right? So it's the same with your sales. So I love that offer, and I encourage that. Like, everyone should be looking at all their vendors often, and they should be checking them. Like, look at the fees. What's changing? And it's interesting too, because your example of like the 100,000 at 2.7%, the next month they may run 100,000 with a different effective rate. And I think
So
kind
it
of
changes every
tying
month.
back in to your conversation, right, is you can run the same volume with a different effective rate because maybe how you take cards changed, or maybe the type of cards you took changed.
That's right.
And those two things are going to be impacted no matter who you use.
That's right. That's right.
Interesting. Love that.
And even if you take the, if you did $100,000 of business and you still took the same, took the cards the same way, there's still nothing that says that people use the same type of cards. You know, those reward cards, merchants pay for those. Those are more expensive to take than a debit or a standard consumer credit card. You know, a standard consumer credit card might clear interchange at 1.5%. Whereas a rewards card might clear interchange at 2.09%. So, and that's cost. You know, I mean, that's before anybody makes anything. So, yeah, the card that is pulled out of the customer's wallet dictates the cost and how you take it.
So it sounds like there's so many fees with credit cards. So should I just tell my clients to pay by check or cash?
Well, cash is certainly becoming more and more obsolete, oddly enough. You know, when I shop, I try to use cash as much as I can because I'm in the credit card business and I know how much fees they pay. But sometimes I can't get around it and I have to use my card. Now, electronic checks are becoming very popular, more and more. The reason why they're becoming more and more popular is because the cost of collecting money for a business owner sometimes is more expensive than it needs to be. And not all, there are sometimes that we don't even collect the money. You know what I mean? We just get kind of stiffed. I mean, you know, you've been in business long enough.
Yep.
But electronic checks are a fraction of the cost of credit cards. So if you can drive your customers to your website and they put in their ACH information, that costs you, the merchant, a lot less to take that payment. So we are trying to steer as many people into ACH options as well, especially some of our big wholesale distribution companies around the country that do big purchases for retail establishments around the country. Why pay 2.5% when you can pay an ACH transaction fee and that's it? I mean, it's a lot less.
So it sounds like, again, going back, and I know that was a softball question, but I mean, I know we've heard it, right? I know that that's something I've heard business owners say is like, you know, hey, I don't take it. And we'll see it in the construction industry and some of those big transaction industries. But then at the same time, they're like, hey, I've got 300,000 in receivables out.
Yeah.
Well, why do you make it so hard to let people pay you, right? So I think the other side of it is, you know, there is a convenience fee, right? So it sounds like you're really having those conversations with businesses and saying, hey, let's look at your environment, your client experience, and let's figure out, one, are there ways to save money? And two, let's make sure that we're making it easy for clients to actually pay you so that you're not sitting on $500,000 on receivables.
That's right. Yeah. The cost of not getting paid is super expensive, dude. Super expensive. Get paid. It's a cost.
Love that. What about Amex? You know, I think it's slowly fading away, but I still think that there's businesses that like just refuse to take it. Like, where did that come from? And is that still something that's true?
No, it's not. It's not as true as it used to be. Amex used to have, it's their own card breed. You know, they have their own rules and regulations, and they used to be a lot more expensive to take from the customer's perspective. And they would pay the merchant or the customer slower. So that would tick off a lot of business owners because, you know, again, waiting for money sucks. But historically, excuse me, let me say that differently. In the last, 8 years or so, American Express has really changed their game. They've developed an interchange just like Visa and MasterCard. And they are a lot more competitive at this point. Now, they're still a little bit more than Visa. I get it, but they're not nearly as what they used to be.
So there shouldn't be as much fear from a business owner It should be something that, hey, you should be taking this, and there are good rewards to it. So there's a chance you're going to have customers who want to use it.
Yep. Yep.
Let's talk about my ability to get money, right? I think that's something you just mentioned there. I think really relevant, right? So, I've seen some of those posts go up for like, hey, PayPal's holding on to my money, and it's taking me 4 or 5 days to get paid on my customer paying me. Why does that happen? And what should the turnaround time look like, or what's that process?
Well, I'm going to try to do my best as giving you the 35-cent answer, not the 85-cent answer. That's a long answer. I apologize. Which is odd that you asked that, because we just had a customer the other day called us in just freaking out, panicking. They use Square, and Square is currently holding all of their money, and they can't get their money. And they're a local coffee shop, and they're hurting. So, it's one of those things that people don't understand the value of going with a local company like us until they don't, right? Then they'll realize it quickly. You should be receiving your money the next morning, right? Overnight funding, depending on what time you actually close. If you close later in the evening, then it would be the following morning. You should never be waiting more than 2 days for your money in any occurrence. Let me see. With regards to PayPal and Square and Stripe, they're not really a merchant account. And again, if I start talking too long, I apologize. Go ahead and give me the signal, right? But when you sign up for a merchant account from a traditional merchant processor like Gratis, you own the account. It's your account. You have to approve. You have to be approved, and it's your money. It's your account. With Stripe, PayPal, and Square, they are what's called an aggregator. You can go onto Google and type in what is an aggregator, and it will tell you all about it. But let me sum it up for you. An aggregator is a company that holds one account, and then they assign terminals out that feed into that one account. So when a local coffee shop uses the Square gives them a Square device, and Square knows how much to fund them based on how much that terminal processed. Okay, that account is not theirs. They are being funded, that account, through the terminal. So that's why Square and PayPal and Stripe are famous for holding money, because it's not really yours anyway.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? So that's why when people say, what do you mean I have to get it approved? Why do I need to give my social security number? I didn't need to do that with PayPal. Well, that's because that's not a real account. You know what I mean? You can't buy a car. You can't open up a bank account without a social security number. The Patriots Act stopped that from happening, right? You just can't do it. And with a merchant account, it is a financial transfer of money. So it is governed by the federal regulations. When I run a transaction at Joe Bob's Chicken Shack today, and Joe Bob's receives that money tomorrow, Visa hasn't been paid from me yet. So that is a micro loan. Every time they get a deposit, they are being loaned that money. We don't pay for it for upwards to a month later. So that's why that's why Square, PayPal, and Stripe is a really big frustration for us, because people think that they have a merchant account and they don't.
So it may be an easy path to get set up.
It is,
but you're not going to have the same kind of control or support.
Absolutely. In fact, if you were to go search PayPal or Stripe or Square, you would see that they're specifically designed for startups and smaller businesses.
Yeah, easy, right? It's easy. But again, there's no partnership there, and it's not your account. So that's something I didn't understand, and I think that's why I asked the question, because I think it's critical people understand, yes, you can set up that way. It's easy, it's quick, and get your money, right? Start your business. I'm not telling you not to. But at some point, you probably want to transfer that relationship and conversation to a partner, right? Some sort of company, local, regional, that's going to support you and be a partner with you as you scale and grow your business.
That's absolutely perfect. I was at a very, very large business this morning with Cindy, making a presentation, and they said, explain to me what it feels like when we need service. Who do we call? And I explained to them, I said, obviously, you got the powers of the biggest companies in the world behind us, but we always want you to call us. We want to go to war for you. We don't want you to sit there on hold. We want to be the people that wow you every time you need to be wowed. So there is a value of going local service, and there is obviously local money is local money also. So
love that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in the credit card payment processing ACH world that a business owner should think about or consider? Anything that pops up for you, or a common objection that may not be true?
Yes, I got a great one for you. Oftentimes people say, oh, we go through our bank, they're our processor, right? And I understand, by the way, this is not the first company I've owned. I used to process through my bank as well. However, the banks are not processors. They are what's called an independent sales organization for the real processors. The real processors are your First Data, Elavon, help me out here, WorldPay, Vantif. There's only like 5 of them. Everything goes through those 5 companies. So when someone says, Kirk, we go through Wells Fargo. Great. We go through the same company Wells Fargo does. Wells Fargo uses First Data. Gratis use First Data. There's nothing you can get from Wells Fargo that you cannot get from Gratis, with regards to product. Same thing with Bank of America and Nevada State Bank, and Nevada State Bank uses First Data as well. So, they pitch exclusivity and they pitch individuality, but really, to be honest with you, they are just offering the same products as everyone else. We think we love the fact that we're locally owned. We love the fact that we employ local people here, just like all the other local companies. But the other thing that we do that we're really proud of, obviously, and I know you are well aware of, is that every time a merchant selects Gratis, they get to select one of the 13 participating nonprofits that we currently work with. And a piece of every transaction goes to the nonprofit that the customer picks. Not the customer's customer, but the business owner gets to say, I want to support Care Chest. Now, every time a customer buys something at their store, a tiny, tiny piece goes to Care Chest. That is what makes us different. And that is the part that feels good. We've taken something that we're good at, and we figured out how to do good with it. And that feels good.
And I love that, because giving back should be part of any business's mission, right? I think you have to be community focused. And I've always appreciated about you, about your team, about people you surround yourself with, is you're always community focused, right? And I'm glad you pivoted to that, because I greatly respect what GratisGives does. And I think that it shakes the industry a little bit, and it says, hey guys, let's do good, right?
How much did we give away last week? 2 weeks ago was it? How much it was like $43,517 or something.
Coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah. That feels good.
Feels great. And I love that, because I've heard that, right? Like, oh, my bank takes care of me. Well, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even understand that statement. I'm glad that you think they take care of you. However, no matter who my vendor is, I want to put them in line at least once a year. Once a year, if I'm using a good friend, let's check it. Like, let's make sure the relationship is still where it should be. Let's make sure I understand what I'm paying for. It's okay. Like, it's healthy to have those conversations. So why would you sign up for a merchant account and not touch it or look at it for a decade?
You'd be amazed at how many people have not. We just signed up a company in Providence, Rhode Island, that's 103 years old. And I bet you they haven't done a review on their account for 15 years.
Oh.
And when they saw the savings, I thought they passed out. I mean, hello. It was pretty crazy.
But that's awesome. And I love that. And I remember the NCET talk I had, and we're talking about, lessons learned from COVID. And I think that was my number one thing is like, talk to your vendors, right? Your vendors should be responsive and they should be advocating for you, right? So your vendor should have been calling you saying, how's business? How are things going? How can we help? You shouldn't have had to lifeline your vendor, right? That's not how the relationship should work. And if that's how it's working, you might want to change your vendor, right?
Right.
So good. Let's transition to business. You've had all sorts of businesses, all sorts of ventures. You've done some really cool things. And every time we talk, I always learn something. So if someone is starting out on their professional journey or launching a business, what are one or two things that everyone should hear, know, or think about?
Wow. Do it better. Be better. Oh my gosh, there's so much, Devin. There's so much there. Do better with it. Devin, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. I apologize to be cliche, but this is our corner of the earth. It's our job to take responsibility and take care of it. So, I love the social consciousness. I love the social capitalism. It is really, really important to me that we do everything we can to heighten humanity through business. It's what I enjoy to do. I enjoy doing business, and I enjoy making people better. So, if you're just going to sell a mousetrap, then figure out how am I going to impact others by selling the mousetrap.
I love that.
Yeah.
And someone said, don't forget your why, right? And that was a good feedback. And it's definitely one that resonates with this, right? Is like, yeah, you might be the best baker, right? That's awesome. But why are you opening your bakery? What are you trying to do in the community, right? And I think that's the important part is like, let's not just take a skill and run out and launch a company. Let's actually think through, am I going to have jobs? Am I going to sponsor and impact the community? Is my quality of product and service going to be better so that I'm impacting businesses or adding value or saving them money? Or, what's the why? What's the impact? And I think impact is something that people, when they write their business plans, I'm surprised they don't include it more, right? Because that's the true lasting piece, right? Is like the business may come and go, you may come and go, but that impact will be remembered, right?
Right. I'm sure you've seen that Simon Sinek video with the why. Have you seen that?
Love
and
that.
And I love how he closes it, and because he's talking about Apple, and he goes out, the how, the what, and then the why, and at the end it says, "Oh yeah, and we sell computers," right? I mean, oh yeah, and we sell merchant services. Is a lot about what we think about here. Yeah.
Well, and does that transition into the kind of selling features versus benefits? I think often if we talk about salespeople, I see salespeople be much, much more successful when they talk about the benefits and impact of the product or service they're selling, right? Versus the guy who goes out there and goes, here's the bullet point list of everything you get, buy now. And it's like, huh?
In every industry, there's a bucket of white noise. Now, all of the white noise might be accurate. Better service, better rates, better terminals, but it's all white noise. Anybody can make those claims. So if you're only adding to the quantity of white noise that's being produced in your industry, then shame on you.
Love that. Love that. Yes. Let's talk about mentorship. I think you have an innate ability, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through working with the people around you, to be an awesome mentor. When it comes to mentoring, are there any trends or things that you see that are common conversations that people tend to get stuck with as they're trying to pursue growth?
I hate to do it to you, Devin, but can you say that again?
Yeah, are there any common obstacles or conversations you have when mentoring people, whether it's an athlete or an individual, just a trend or something you tend to see people get stuck with frequently?
First of all, for the people that know me, know that I love both being spoken into and I love speaking into, right? Last night I was with someone that I hold in very high regard and gave him the opportunity to just pour into me. Dude, pour into me, make me better. Oh, you know what I mean? But I think that those relationships and those opportunities can only happen when there's a level of authenticity and genuineness, and most importantly, a level of real vulnerability, right? Someone cannot be poured into or pour into if there's not a mutual feeling of acceptance of vulnerability.
Love that.
I know that probably sounds foo-foo and a little bit Brene Brown. I apologize, but although she is amazing, but it's real. You know what I mean? If someone's not being authentic, it doesn't matter what you have to say. It's not going to resonate.
Love that. And I love that you reference giving and getting, right? Like, I think that, yes, if you were given into, you have to give, right? And it's a cycle, right?
Yes.
None of us know everything. It's impossible, right? And that's why I love these conversations, because I find no matter who you're talking to, there's a lesson that can be learned, right? Now, the impact of that lesson, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? If you have a deeper relationship and you're being vulnerable and authentic with that person and vice versa, the impact is going to be magnified for sure.
Yes.
But pay attention, because there's lessons everywhere, right? And why would you not help other people fast track something that you've already figured out? Now, they may not want to hear it, but at least you tried to help.
That's right. The other thing that makes all that contingent is one's willingness to be reflective and be introspective. Right? Because, when we look at it through our portals, everything looks right. And it's not always right. So we got to be able to be true to ourselves as well. And that sometimes is the hardest piece. Sometimes when I walk by the mirror, I duck down so I don't have to see myself, But yeah, really, I mean, if you're not honest with yourself, then you got some work to do.
Well, and having those accountability partners, right? You got to be able to pick up the phone and say, man, I messed that up. Like, well, can I talk through it? Or, hey, I crushed that. Let me share the win, because that energy is just as good, right?
Yep.
So love that. And I know we've talked about that, right? Who's in your circle? What's your circle look like? Are they pouring into you? Are they sucking you dry? Like, you got to pay attention, right? Because that circle is gonna hit your energy.
Yep, absolutely. I think of it, there's 3 stages, right? Someone should always be pouring into you. You should always have a circle that's lateral as well, that you can just hang out with. They're not better than you. You're not better than them. It's just an even playing field. And then you always need a category, genre or group of people that are openly seeking your counsel, right? There's opinions, and then there's counsel. And when you find someone that's willing to give you counsel, take it. Opinions are a dime a dozen, but counsel comes from wisdom, and that stuff is valuable.
I love that. Let's talk about, I was at Eddie House yesterday. I was chatting with some of their clients, and this conversation came up, and I thought I always have the best conversations there. It's impactful when people are trying to do better in their life. But this topic came up, and it's something I see often is, people are out there trying to do everything by themselves, right? Here's my path. Here's my journey. Maybe you do have really well-defined goals. Maybe you have a clear plan to get there, but it's a lot of me. It's a lot of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the job. I'm going to go get a raise. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I think that, colleges they tell you to get an internship, but what they should tell you is just go out and meet people. And if there's an industry, sector, or space that you want to get into, talk to everybody in the damn space. Because I know when I was on my journey and starting, and still now, I was so scared to ask. Like, I was so scared to waste that business owner's time. And in fact, that business owner, the majority of the time, is craving the ability to give back and tell their story. So we were having that talk at Eddie House yesterday, and that was my encouragement is like, hey, if you want to get, in this case, they want to get into the cannabis industry. And I said, that's a phenomenal industry. So many things grow in there. There's obviously some hiccups and challenges, but what are you doing to get in the industry? And he's like, well, I'm going to get my card. No. What are you doing to get in the industry? Like, who are you talking to? Where are you networking? What meetings are you having? And it was like a light bulb went off. And I know that you do that really well and you encourage people to do that. Is there any comment you can say about that? I want to bring it up because it's so critical. I think people go out there and actually try to find some of that info.
Boy, you've read some of the same books I've read. And Napoleon Hill, he worked for 2 years commissioned by Dale Carnegie to extrapolate from the leaders of the time best practices, and he did it for nothing. And then there's been countless studies, and if you want to know the industry, go into work in the industry for 90 days for nothing. Meet as many people in the industry. And if at the end of 90 days you love it, do it. At the end of 90 days, you don't, get out. You saved yourself a bunch of time and a bunch of money and a bunch of frustrations. Like you, Devin, I'm super connections based. I'm very relational. I love my relationships. And to some I would be considered connected, to some I would be considered not connected, but I am always looking for more connections. It's super valuable.
Love that. And I love that 90-day analogy. That's such an impactful lesson, right? Is, often it's so interesting that we as a society try to push a 17-year-old, right, to make a life decision on what do you want to do when you grow up?
Yeah.
like maybe what do you want to do for the next 5 to 10 years, right? Like, I don't know how often someone just jumps off the diving board and lands in the pool they're going to swim in, right? Like, I think that you're right. Like, look at what are people's lifestyles, right? If you want to be single forever, is that the industry, right? If you want to be married and have a family, is the industry you want to go into sustainable for that? Or do you go look at the industry and find out everyone in the industry is on their 19th marriage? Well, if that's the case and you want a white picket fence and a family, you got to pay attention because you're probably not going to be different.
And a lot of industries are incestual. And I know that sounds really negative, but people just move from bank to bank to bank to bank. You almost want to say, hey, what's the last 9 banks you worked at? I mean, and that's nothing against people at banks, by the way. I probably shouldn't have said that, but you understand what I'm saying.
We love bankers.
There's a lot.
We love you guys.
What? Yeah.
Love
There's a lot of industries out there like that.
Yeah, realtors and mortgage lenders too. You guys fall into the same bucket.
But I think the industry selection is important, but more importantly more importantly are the peoples that are going to be directly in your sphere. Super important.
Love that.
I would
say we're right up at the end of time. So any other words of wisdom, anything that maybe you've been dealing with the last couple of weeks, something you just want to share that you want people to hear?
Here's yeah, I got one. We all have wants, needs, and desires. We all have goals, aspirations, things we want to achieve. And the formula to get any of them is this simple. Go be great. And it'll come eventually. That's it. Go be great. Don't chase it. Go be great for your customers. Go be great for your family. Go be great for your employees. Go be great for your friends. Go be great. That's it.
Yes. I don't have a mic.
But buy them.
Well, Kirk, as always, man, I appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy. I know that you guys are bouncing off the celebration, which is awesome. Congrats on that. Below this video will be Kirk's links. So you can connect with him on whatever platforms he's going to give me links for. There'll also be a click here, which will take you to a form. You can put your name, email, and a message in. That'll go straight to Kirk. So if you want to have a conversation, if anything today resonated, I know Kirk is open to meetings and conversations. So go ahead and fill that out. And Kirk, thanks again. And as always appreciate you.
Hey, Devin, thanks for having me. Loved it. Super fun. Thanks.
Thanks, man.